Welcome to Portrait Week. After spending a whole week focused on drawing portraits, I thought I'd challenge myself to painting portraits for a week. This time, I decided to get my Winsor Newton Galleria paints out. I tested out the ones I've got and played with a bit of mixing, but not only were some of them dried up, I didn't have the basic colours needed. For instance, I've got 3 types of yellow and no type of blue. The Galleria range are not professional quality acrylics, but they're a step up from my budget acrylic set. They use the same pigments as the professional range by Winsor & Newton, but there's just less pigment load, meaning they're less concentrated than the professional paints. So I did some research on which colours to get and ordered a fresh batch of Galleria paints from Cass Art. They were on sale, so that was a bonus. To help me make more paintings, I decided to cut my paper down to A5 size. That way I can get more practice done in less time. I've got to wait for my new paints to be delivered, so I prepare 6 portraits. Since I'm practicing painting and not sketching, I figure using the grid method will speed things up a bit. 3 of my references are in black and white and 3 are in colour, and I just couldn't wait, so I start on my first reference using the titanium white and raw umber I have. The titanium white is drying up, but it's still usable, whereas the raw umber seems to be in great shape. I start with the reference that looks the least intimidating and get to work. I think I can tell a difference from the coverage of the paint on the canvas paper, but it's hard to say for sure because the white is a bit sticky, but it does seem to be covering better than my Crawford and black paints. I only use 2 brushes, a medium round brush and a small flat brush, and that seems to be enough to complete this reference. Next reference, and the face is a lot smaller on the page than yesterday's portrait. I'm thinking it will be much quicker to complete. I start with taping the paper down. I don't use masking tape directly onto the canvas paper anymore, as it tends to rip. The washi tape gives me a border, and the masking tape sticks the canvas paper onto the surface. In case you were wondering, so far on this channel I've documented every piece of art I've done since I restarted my art practice. That's kind of the point of making these videos, to track the progress and improve my filming and editing skills as I improve my art skills. But at the same time, it's hard for me to be an objective viewer, pretending to watch it through your eyes when it's my own content. So I'll welcome your comments on what you like and dislike about them. But yeah, you're literally seeing everything I draw and paint in what spare time I have to dedicate to art, and I'm so curious to see what I'll be making in a year's time. We're continuing with the monochrome theme. This portrait is way more difficult to replicate than it looks. You'd think it was just easy peasy, bung a load of shadow in there and you're done, but it was actually more fiddly than that. I start by blocking in the largest shapes I can see. I need lots more practice at this because it's hard to go from looking at what you know, eyes, nose, lips, ears, to looking at it like an artist and seeing it all broken down into basic shapes. Square, triangle, trapezium, etc. But I try to be controlled and follow Chris Fornataro's advice to leave the details to the end. He goes by Paint Coach on YouTube and Forza43 on Instagram. I definitely recommend checking out his stuff if you want to improve your painting. He specialises in oils, but I think a lot of the advice can translate to acrylic painting too. The only thing is that acrylic dries so much faster than oil. But I'll leave his info linked in the description so you can check it out if you want to. I went back to it the next day to try to improve this painting. I use an extra small round brush and a liner brush to help me get the details. Again, it's in a kind of limbo between impressionism and realism, but considering how deceptively difficult this reference is, I'm satisfied with the outcome and ready to move on to the next painting. Okay, I thought I was done, but the next day I fiddled a bit with my latest reference. The paint dried funny, so I just wanted to get this fixed before I move on to my final monochrome practice for this week. I'm really getting into this simpler, values-only way of painting, and I'm a little daunted by the prospect of going back to colours. But it's good, I need to stretch myself. I'm actually feeling quite unmotivated today, but I want to work like a pro. So I push myself to do this final black and white reference. I start with the shadows again, but this time I put in some of the smaller dark shapes before I block in all the main shapes. I'm not sure which order I prefer to work in yet, so I keep experimenting. Before I started on my next reference, I made a paint chart using my new colours to help speed up my colour mixing. I'll post a short, separate video explaining how I did that next week. I really wasn't feeling it today. I could have honestly gone without painting anything, but I wanted to try to stick to my plan, so I pushed through. I mixed brown with the 3 primary colours, and then added ultramarine to make a shade very close to black for the top. My attempt at the freckles wasn't great, and her lips are too pouty, but once I'd removed the tape, I called it done and finished for the day. This painting was a bit more difficult again. I have a wider range of brushes I've collected as the week's gone on. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, since painterly paintings tend to call for larger brushes and an economy of brush strokes. But the face is quite small on the page today, so I feel like I need to turn to smaller brushes. This portrait is in a skin tone I haven't painted before, and that means trying to figure out all the colours again. Initially, the highlights look quite grey, and I'll wind up using an app with an eyedropper tool to help me work out what colour the highlights really are. Painting the hand was quite tricky as well, and a bit of an afterthought. I'm going to have to invest some time into painting hands at some point in the future. The background looks effective. I was going to start with painting a neutral colour all over the background before painting the face, but I forgot to do that. On my final day of portrait painting, I actually started with a little sketch from a photo I took while out on a morning walk. It's of a cupboard for free book swapping. It's super cute, and the whole idea of it makes me smile. The thought that you can just pick up somebody's book they're finished with and start a new reading adventure, and then you can leave one you're finished with for someone else to pick up. You might share book taste with a complete stranger you'll never meet, or it could even be a neighbour that you walk by every so often and you've no idea you've got something in common. There's a lovely feeling of community attached to this little cupboard, and I like it a lot. Once I'd finished this 20-minute sketch, I moved on to fiddling a bit with the previous day's portrait, refining the hand as best I could and adjusting some of the highlights in the face. Once I'd done that, I moved on to my final reference. I must admit, I'm a bit tired of painting portraits at this point, so I'm going to move on to something else next week, probably landscapes or still life. I'll come back to portraits again in future, but I need a bit of a break. Here's the finished portraits. I think it's helped stretch my skills, in colour mixing if nothing else. And I like the look of this little collection altogether. Comment below which is your favourite and your least favourite from this bunch. I'd love to find out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.